Bartleby, who it's Dorothy Bartleby, but her friends call her Bartleby, kind of appeared in a short story a few years before I sat down to write the novel, and sort of all the seeds of higher magic were there. So, struggling graduate student, trying to do this tricky spell. It is a narration skull that goes awry, but I was trying to do that in a short story format, and I wrote it, titled it Digimancy, sent it out one time, got a form rejection, and thought, I know why they're rejecting this. It's too big of an idea. And so I went back to the drawing board with that. It took me a few more years of sort of mulling over what I wanted the world to be to start really writing and pulling it together. But definitely like drawing on my experience in grad school, my experience after grad school working at a university with a lot of digital humanities, sort of like computer oriented scholarship happening. It was a kind of a perfect storm. Higher Magic is the story of Dorothy Bartleby, who is a first gen grad student who has intense anxiety. That anxiety causes her to fail her major exam that will determine whether she gets to write her dissertation or has to leave the program. She has one more chance, and that's where the book starts, with that one more chance. And she learns that she has to use a methodology that is really her Achilles heel. So it is digimancy, it's the blending of magic and computers. And her attempts to do that in the form of a spell for her exam lead to the creation of Anne, who is a talking skull who is sort of doing narration magic or helping her figure out if narration might be magic, but isn't working properly. And her attempts to figure out why lead her to this really startling discovery that students are going missing at her campus and literally disappearing. So it's set at a state university, a fictional state university in Oregon called Sublimity. And at that university, there is a magic program, but also sort of all the other academic programs that you would expect at a real world university. It's a little complicated in the way that academics are tend to do. So there are kind of two levels to magic in this world. One is just basic magic. It's what you're born with, sort of the natural skill. And there are sort of four buckets that might fall into. You might have sort of an incantation-based magic where you're really good with word-based spells, basically. Object-based magic, where you might, like animate an object or use an object to anchor a sort of reality you want to create, gesture-based magic, and then a ritual-based magic. And those are still sort of the main building blocks of what's called higher magic, which is sort of the advanced magic you can do only if you kind of get a degree and have access to certain things. The big one being archives. So magic is basically an argument with reality that you make. And the more complex your argument, the more complex your working can be, but it takes a lot of time to build that complexity and to hold it all in your head. And so really what's happening at the university level is that you're able to sort of cite previous spells to sort of do some of that legwork for you. I think there are a few things that went into the decision to do a skull. I've just always really liked bones. I like, not in a creepy way, just in like, I took a human osteology class in college and I thought it was really cool that you can like know how a person grew up and like what they ate based on their bones and that kind of thing. But really, I think the big thing is I was playing a lot with 18th and 19th century themes and literature, and the memento mori, this sort of like a reminder that we all die, is a huge part of that. And so skulls pop up all the time, and they're also just like one step away from human, like they were human. And so that's really important in terms of how narration can be magic. And I'm not going to go much into that because it's a little bit of a spoiler. But so it needed to be something really closely connected to humans because of like a storytelling piece. And she's meant to sort of like mix and match classic literature just to help Bartleby see if there are patterns that might point to spell work. Because she has this theory that early literature literally changed reality in some way, but nobody has been able to prove it before. So Anne is meant to really just be sort of like a pattern recognition device, magically enhanced, but it quickly has a personality, and that personality is a little bit snarky, a little bit invasive in that it pulls her inner thoughts out and shares them with the world, even when she doesn't necessarily want it to. And I think that's also because like Jane Austen's narration was very much like that. So Anne is my sort of hat tip to what Jane Austen was doing. I went back in time a little bit. In the 19th century, there was something called the Golden. Oh gosh, I'm gonna like completely blank. The do you mind if I Google it really quickly? Because
No,
my
not at
mind
all.
has.
Not at all.
Thank you.
That's why we
Yeah.
record.
Yeah, so in the 19th century, there was something called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. It was an occult secret society, basically, but they did something interesting in terms of like occult practices, which is they made it communal, like they studied together. And before it had always been like a thing that individual people sort of pursued in secret in a lair somewhere, partly because it was like it could be very dangerous to study from the perspective of like social mores. So yeah, I went back in time to say, okay, what if they were the start of something? What if they actually had part of it right? And from that moment in our history, people recognized that magic was real and it should be studied, but it didn't need to be in secret societies. We could do it in the universities. And so when Bartleby's studying magic has been accepted in the world, there are people who think it's wrong and that shouldn't be studied, that like people who are born this way shouldn't be this way. And they feel like there's like that it's wrong to mess with reality, basically. But for the most part, it's been accepted. There are things like teleportation spells that start to replace air travel. And so there's like little nods to that wider world building. NASA is mining moon rocks for use in magic in my world. Yeah, so it is an accepted thing, and but you only really can get access to it at an institution that has an archive of lots and lots of spells. Otherwise, you're always going to be stuck doing like the very basic sort of magic that you were born with. So James is a really important counterpoint to Bartleby. She is first generation. She doesn't know this world. James comes from a long line of necromancers, so he's a legacy student. Anyone who looks at him would say he belongs in academia. He belongs in magic studies. He should be a mage. So he's sort of like the opposite of Bartleby, but they have this really shared connection around failure in their academic trajectory in their journeys, because his family is all necromancers, and he's trying to forge his own path. So he really admires that Bartleby can fail and keep trying and like pivot and pick up because his major experience with failure nearly killed him, and it's something that's really hard for him to navigate.